Shanghai had answered some of our questions, but it had opened new ones. We spent 3 days in one of the most modern cities on Earth. We walked Nanjing Road. We stood at the Bund and watched the Pudong skyline light up at night, that forest of glass towers, reflected in the river below. We watched a drone deliver someone's lunch in 12 minutes. We danced with strangers in a park at 8 in the morning. The technology was real. The scale was real. The relentless, forward-pushing energy of a city that seemed to have decided, somewhere around 1978, to simply refuse to stand still. But cities are not a country. Sometimes cities are the most edited version of a country, the part presented first, because it's hardest to argue with. Skylines are convincing. Numbers are convincing. We wanted to see what was underneath the skyline. We wanted to understand China. So from Shanghai, we flew to Guilin, in southern China, about 2 hours in the air. And somewhere between the takeoff and the landing, the China we'd begun to know was left entirely behind. In this video, we're journeying through China's most iconic scenery. From the cascading green waves of the Longji Rice Terraces to a legendary cruise down the misty Li River. We'll drift past towering karst peaks that defy gravity and finish our adventure in the vibrant streets of Yangshuo. We arrive in Guilin in the evening. Evenings in China are a special, one-of-a-kind experience. As the lights go down, the colors light up. Chinese cities seem to have been designed specifically for the hour after sunset. The neon, the lanterns, the way the lake water picks up the light and scatters it in all directions. Our hotel, the Waterfall Hotel, sits right at the edge of the city's central lake. From our room, we look out at a pagoda rising from the water, its reflection glimmering on the surface below. Guilin is famous for those dramatic limestone mountains, those peaks that look like they were placed rather than formed. Right next door is a pedestrian walking street, and we've learned by this point that the evening pedestrian street is where life actually happens in Chinese cities. We walk out into it, food vendors everywhere, smoke rising from small charcoal grills, the smell of spice and char and something sweet, all mixing together. We stop at a local barbecue stand. Small skewers, hot fire, a red sauce with serious intentions. Zarko is delighted immediately. He goes back for more. I try it and find that my mouth is on fire. Chinese beer. It is cold, it is light, and it is precisely what you want after something has set your mouth on fire. Most of the people around us are Chinese tourists. Guilin, it turns out, is enormously popular domestically, almost all Chinese. Very few foreign faces. One generation ago, a family holiday to Guilin was not possible for most Chinese people. Today, you can barely find a hotel room in peak season. The next morning begins with a cave. We have been to a great many caves in our travels. They have this chair that's right next, and it says that they'll carry you all the way if you can't make it. The Flute Cave is different. It is lit by people who clearly understand the dramatic potential of colored light in a confined space of strange geology. Every formation illuminated differently. Cool blues in one chamber, deep purples in another.
This is the Statue of Liberty.
A warm amber that makes the stalactites look like they're burning from the inside. It is theatrical. Our guide, Joanne, walks us through it with practiced enthusiasm, pointing at formations as we pass. Do you see the elephant? Over there, that is a sleeping lion. Can you see the angel? Right there in the center. We look, we squint, we tilt our heads in several different directions. All we can see are stalactites. It seems to us that Chinese people have a lot of imagination. After the cave, we drive into the hills, away from Guilin. The road climbs, and the landscape changes from city to farmland to forest to something that begins green and just keeps getting greener until green no longer feels like a precise enough word for what you're looking at. We are heading to the Longji Rice Terraces, 600 years old, built entirely by hand by the Zhuang and Yao ethnic minorities who have worked these hillsides since the 14th century. The name Longji means dragon's backbone. When you see the terraces from above, those curved lines following the contour of the mountain in long layered arcs, all the way to the ridge, you understand why someone looked at this and thought of the spine of a dragon. An electric cart takes us from the base of the hill up to the walking path. A well-paved loop brings us around the terraces and into the village at the top. And standing up here, taking it all in, there's something the view doesn't tell you. The people farming these terraces, the families whose ancestors built these stone walls 600 years ago, whose grandparents worked this hillside, whose children are being raised on it, they do not own it. Not a single acre. In China, all agricultural land belongs either to the state or to village collectives. What farmers hold is not ownership. It's a lease, a use right. Under what is called the household responsibility system, introduced in the 1970s, village collectives assign plots to individual families for 30-year terms. But recently, they extended it for another 30 years. The family decides what to plant. They own the harvest. They keep the profit. But the earth itself belongs to the collective, to the state. And if the state needs that land for a railway, a road, a development, it can reclaim it. Compensation is legally required, but the decision is not yours to make. Farmers in China are, in the precise legal sense, the long-term tenants of land their families have worked for generations. Zarko grew up in Bulgaria under communism. His grandfather was a farmer, a man who had spent his entire adult life building something from nothing. He had bought land, 1 acre at a time, through decades of sacrifice, doing without, deferring, saving, buying one more piece of earth when he finally had enough to do it. And then, almost overnight, it was not. When the communists took power in Bulgaria after the Second World War, agricultural land was collectivized. You did not own your farm anymore. The collective did. The state did. Zarko's grandfather lived with that for the rest of his life. Then, 1989, the Berlin Wall falls. Communist governments across Eastern Europe unravel. And the new government, in a gesture that was 40 years too late, gave the land back. The land came back to the families it had been taken from. He has never farmed it. He has no intention of farming it. He does not know precisely where it is. He receives a small amount each year from an agricultural business that works it. And every now and then, he thinks he should probably go and find it, just to stand on it, just to see it. He cannot sell it, not because he is legally prevented from selling it, but because he cannot bring himself to. He knows what it cost his grandfather to buy it, 1 difficult acre at a time. He knows what it cost to lose it. He knows that selling it would be some kind of final completion of a process his grandfather never consented to. So it stays. Different times, he says, just different times. Standing on that hillside in the Longji Rice Terraces, watching farmers move through their morning routines on land they will work their entire lives and never own. That story felt very close, not as history, not as economics, as something still alive and unresolved. But there is a layer beneath even that. Walk these terraces and understand that 60 years ago, people were dying of starvation within sight of this view. Curious travelers, we ask questions, we dig through answers, we try to understand. We do not know it all, and we don't pretend to, but we like to see through the fog of mass propaganda and misinformation that is everywhere around us. In the West, in the East, in the North and in the South, everywhere around the world. With age, we accumulate a bit of wisdom and the understanding that the truth is not black and white, it's gray. Coming into the village at the top of the terraces, we meet some of the Yao women. The Yao are one of the minority groups who have lived in these mountains for generations. They are perhaps best known outside China for something remarkable. The older women cut their hair only once in their adult lives, at 18, when they come of age. And to keep it that long and that black, they wash it in fermented rice water, a recipe passed down quietly from one generation to the next. In the last 2 decades, the number of Chinese tourists coming into the Longji area has grown dramatically. Roads were paved. The electric cart system was installed. Small guest houses and restaurants opened in the villages. Before we leave the village, we stop for lunch. A small, open-fronted restaurant, the kind where the view is as much a part of the meal as anything on the table. A simple lunch, local vegetables, rice, a meat dish, 2 cold beers. The whole meal, for 2 of us, comes to surprisingly inexpensive. The next morning, we are on the river. We arrive at the Mopan Shan Pier. The morning mist is still sitting on the Li River. We are on a 4-star cruise boat. Comfortable chairs, wide picture windows, a proper lunch served while the mountains move past us outside. Joanne tells us stories the whole way down the river.
The first one is called the Yangdi village. That is a fishing village. You know, the people made living by fishing there for more than 1,000 years already.
Other boats pass constantly, bamboo rafts, smaller tourist vessels, everything from very basic to very comfortable. The Li River is seriously extremely popular. Families, couples, school groups, retirees in matching hats. People who perhaps grew up knowing what this view was supposed to look like, from a photograph or a painting, or the bill in their parents' wallet, and who have now saved enough to come and see it for themselves. Some people compare the Li River to Ha Long Bay in Vietnam. We have been to Ha Long Bay. We understand the impulse toward that comparison. Both involve dramatic limestone rising from water. We do not think the comparison is right, and we say that as people who found Ha Long Bay genuinely beautiful. Ha Long Bay is a seascape, wide and open. The Li River is something else. The mountains here rise in isolation from flat farmland, in perfect vertical columns of dark rock, nothing else. Just those peaks and the water between them, and the reflections. We drift south for hours. The mountains come and go. Some things do not need commentary. Some things you just have to receive. Yangshuo at the end of the river is a town, small by Chinese standards, which means it has perhaps 100,000 people and feels almost unhurried compared to everywhere else. Very touristy in its center, a busy main street of restaurants and shops and guest houses that have been built specifically for the waves of visitors arriving by boat each afternoon. We find a good restaurant, sit by the window with dinner and cold beer, watch the wet street outside. By evening, the rain has tapered off. The timing, as it turns out, is exactly right. I want to describe this carefully because there is a category of experience in travel that sounds like spectacle on paper and fails to become anything in the actual presence of it. This is not that. The show is called Impression Liu Sanjie. It is performed outdoors on the Li River itself. And on the water, extending across a width of river edge, are 3,000 performers. Fishing boats strung with lanterns, moving in formation across the river. Synchronized movement that somehow achieves precision across an enormous open space. We sit there in the cool evening air, the last of the rain smell still coming off the mountains. We had arrived in Guilin expecting beautiful scenery. We found it. The scenery delivered entirely and without reservation on everything we had heard and imagined. What we had not expected was how fully the history lived inside the landscape. From Guilin and Yangshuo, we are heading northwest to Lijiang, a city that has been continuously inhabited for more than 1,000 years, that sits at the foot of a snow-capped mountain range, and that looks, from certain angles and certain light, as if time stopped somewhere in the 14th century and simply forgot to start again. That is the next video, and we'll see you there.